The inflammation. The hospital ship Serenity Arc floated silently in orbit above a pale blue moon. Inside its shining silver walls, hundreds of beings from different worlds healed, recovered, or waited for news from the medical teams. It was a place of peace, science, and silence. Nurse Curiel moved quickly down the corridor. She was tall, with glowing teal skin, wide violet eyes, and hair like soft silver vines. Her species, the Lorelians, were known for their calm voices and healing touch. Curiel had trained for 10 Earth years to be a lead nurse. She had treated creatures with 6 hearts, others with acid for blood, and even one with no bones at all. But today she was nervous. Her new patient was human. Curiel entered the exam room. The lights dimmed automatically as the door sealed shut. On the bed sat Lance Mercer, a young Terran man in his late 20s. He had short black hair, a light scar on his jaw, and tired eyes that had seen too much war. He was recovering from injuries suffered on a border patrol mission. His chart said stable, but Curiel wanted to be sure. "Good day, patient Mercer," she said softly, scanning him with her medical pad. "Do you feel discomfort?" Lance looked up, trying not to stare at her strange but beautiful features. "I've been through worse," he said, forcing a smile. "But thanks for checking." She nodded and moved closer. Her hands, cool and gentle, pressed lightly against his chest, then his arms, then... Suddenly the biomonitor began to beep. Loudly. Curiel blinked. "Strange. Your blood pressure just spiked. So did your pulse." Lance turned red. Curiel narrowed her eyes and moved the scanner lower. "I detect a sudden inflammation in your lower abdomen." The beeping became faster. Lance tried to sit up. Maybe we should stop the exam." Curiel's eyes widened. The screen showed rapid swelling in the soft tissue below his waist. It was growing fast. She gasped. "Emergency protocol activated," she announced, slamming her hand on the wall panel. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed. A robotic voice shouted, "Biohazard detected. Lockdown in progress." Doors sealed. Auto-sanitizers dropped. From the ceiling, robotic arms unfolded with needles, sprays, and shock paddles. "What the hell?" Lance shouted, covering himself with the blanket. "Stay still," Curiel ordered, backing away. "I don't know what's happening. Your body is responding abnormally. You may be infected with a fast-growing parasite." Lance groaned. "I'm not infected. I'm just, embarrassed." The medbay's AI crackled to life. "Nurse Curiel, would you like me to explain the cause of the inflammation?" She nodded quickly. "Yes. Is it dangerous?" "No." The AI replied calmly. "It is a standard human biological response known as arousal. It occurs when a human male becomes sexually stimulated, usually by visual, emotional, or physical contact." Curiel froze. The alarm stopped. The red lights faded. She stared at Lance, her cheeks flushing purple. You were aroused? In this sterile environment? During a medical check?" Lance groaned again. "I didn't mean to. You were just close and soft, and you smell like moonflowers." Curiel blinked, stunned. She stepped back, unsure what to do. The door finally unsealed. 2 security officers rushed in, weapons raised. "Is there a parasite outbreak?" Curiel's voice was quiet. "False alarm. Just human anatomy." The guards looked confused. One muttered, "Terrans are weird," before they left. Silence fell. Lance sat on the edge of the bed, covering his face. "Well, that's going to be the story of the year." Curiel turned away to hide her burning cheeks. She tried to calm her. Thoughts. This wasn't in the manuals. No training had prepared her for this. She cleared her throat. "I apologize for the emergency alarm. I misunderstood your biology." "It's okay," Lance said, chuckling softly. "Honestly, you scared me more than the war." She turned to him again. Her eyes scanned him not as a patient this time, but Differently, I must ask, she said quietly. What exactly caused that reaction? Lance looked at her and shrugged. You're beautiful, kind, gentle, and I'm stuck. In this room, I haven't seen someone like you, ever. Kiriel's pulse quickened. She turned toward the door. I will submit my report. Another nurse will be assigned to your care. You don't have to do that, Lance said quickly. I don't mind. In fact, I kind of like having you around. She paused. Then she looked back at him, and for the first time, she smiled. I felt something too, she whispered. Behind her, the monitor beeped again, slightly faster. The protocol violation. The next day on the Serenity Arc was quiet, but whispers moved faster than light speed. Every hallway buzzed with a strange rumor, something about an alien nurse, a human soldier, and a biohazard lockdown that turned out to be a misunderstanding. The medbay crew tried to stay professional, but laughter broke out behind closed doors, and more than one alien doctor asked, "Is it true what they say about human anatomy?" Nurse Kiriel kept her head low as she walked through the central corridor. Her skin flushed in soft shades of pink, an involuntary Lorellian reaction to deep shame. She didn't respond to the glances, didn't answer the questions. Her reputation as a calm and focused medical officer had been shattered in one moment of confusion, and it was all because of him. Lance Mercer, the human who had smiled, even while alarms rang, the human who had whispered she smelled like moonflowers, the human who had made her feel something she didn't have words for. That night, Kiriel stood outside patient room 19. She knew it was wrong. She had been taken off his case earlier that day. The hospital AI had reassigned Lance to a more experienced Terran specialist, a cyborg nurse who treated human anatomy with the cold efficiency of a machine. The system was trying to protect both of them, but curiosity tugged at her. No, more than curiosity. Connection. She pressed her palm to the door panel. Override code, Kiriel Prime 7. The door slid open. Inside, Lance sat upright, bathed in the pale blue glow of the nightlights. He looked surprised, then relieved. You came back, he said softly. Kiriel stepped inside and let the door seal shut behind her. Only for a few minutes. This is against protocol. I figured, he said, patting the chair beside his bed. But I won't tell if you don't. She hesitated, then slowly sat down. I needed to ask questions. About what happened, he guessed. She nodded. I reviewed several human medical databases. The inflammation, that was natural for you? He chuckled. Yes, embarrassing, but natural. It's called an erection. She winced slightly at the word. Unpleasant name. He smiled. You should hear what we call the rest of our organs. That made her laugh. A soft musical sound that startled them both. Kiriel looked away quickly. But what I don't understand is why it happened. What caused the reaction? I wasn't stimulating you in any way. Lance shifted in bed, clearly unsure how to answer. Kiriel pressed on. Was it physical? Visual? Emotional? I need to understand for science. He met her eyes and answered honestly. It was you, just you. She blinked. Me? You were kind, gentle, and you're beautiful. Her skin turned violet. That is not a proper medical term. It is for humans. They sat in silence for a moment. Somewhere in the ship's deeper levels, the engine hummed like a heartbeat. I've never felt this way, Kiriel admitted. Not during treatment, not ever. Same here, Lance said. I've seen war, I've seen death, but no one ever looked at me like I was a person, until you. Kiriel touched her own wrist gently, where her pulse beat faster than usual. This may be dangerous. For you? Lance asked. For both of us. Suddenly the room lights brightened. Unauthorized presence detected, the AI announced. Nurse Kirill is not assigned to this patient. Kirill stood up quickly. I have to go. I've already broken too many rules. The AI's voice was calm but firm. Report will be submitted to the bioethics board. Lance grabbed her hand. Wait, she looked down at him. I don't want anyone else, he said. Please don't leave me with cold machines. You make me feel alive. Kirill didn't answer. She pulled her hand away and slipped out through the door, vanishing into the shadows of the corridor. Later that night, in the dim light of the med lounge, 2 alien doctors reviewed the security feed from room 19. One of them, a tentacled Granthorian, shook his head slowly. Lurelians don't form bonds, he said. They meditate. They heal. But this one, she's starting to feel. The other, a mechanical being with flashing eyes, answered, That human did something, triggered something. Should we stop it? The machine paused. Not yet. It may be the most important medical experiment we've ever seen. In her quarters, Kirill sat alone. Her hands were still trembling. She had touched dozens of creatures, healed countless wounds, but this was different. When she touched Lance, something moved beneath her skin. Not just energy, not just empathy. It was something human, something dangerous. But it had already begun. The touch that changed the stars. Kirill didn't report for her morning shift. The hospital ship's AI flagged her absence immediately, pinging her location twice before alerting central staff. But her room was dark. Her vitals were steady, but her neural patterns were strange, erratic, even emotional. Unusual for a Lurelian. Meanwhile, in patient room 19, Lance Mercer was no longer stable. He groaned quietly as strange pulses moved through his body. Not pain exactly, but a heat that seemed to swell inside his chest and crawl beneath his skin. His breath came faster. The robotic nurse by his side scanned his vitals with cold precision. Infection markers rising. It said aloud, temperature 101.4 degrees Fahrenheit, immune response inefficient. Lance tried to sit up. Where's Kirill? The machine didn't answer. He collapsed back, dizzy. He knew something was wrong, something deeper than a virus. Ever since she left the night before, his body felt incomplete. Like a missing frequency was tearing him apart. And somewhere inside, he knew. It wasn't sickness. It was withdrawal. Kirill stood in the far corner of the medbay's neuro lab staring at a glowing screen. The scan showed 2 biological patterns, hers and Lance's. At first glance, they were completely different. One smooth, one chaotic. But in the latest reading, the 2 graphs began to pulse in rhythm, like 2 hearts learning to beat as one. This wasn't supposed to happen. Lurelians didn't form bonds. They didn't fall in love. They understood peace, balance, harmony, but not chaos, not attachment. But somehow, Lance had reached into her with a glance, a voice, a simple touch, and rewired something ancient inside her. Impossible, she whispered. Or, came a voice from behind her. A beginning. She turned. It was Dr. Terran, the xenobiologist. A calm-eyed elder with skin like flowing glass and a mind like a laser. I saw the scan, he said, stepping closer. You and the human. You're sinking. Kirill lowered her head. Then I will resign. I've compromised care. I failed. Terran raised a hand. No. You've evolved. She blinked. Do you know how rare this is? He continued. Cross-species neural bonding is theoretical. Impossible according to the Grand Codex, but it's happening. With you. She stared at the graph. But I didn't try. I didn't even mean to. That's what makes it real. Hours later, alarms rang across the medbay again, but this time it wasn't a false alert. Lance's condition had worsened. His temperature spiked. Strange colors shimmered under his skin, veins glowing faintly with gold light. His heart rate danced erratically like it couldn't decide on one rhythm. The robotic nurse called for a code crimson, but none of the usual treatments worked. Medical staff from 3 different species tried everything, antivirals, Oxygen chambers, deep core detox. Nothing helped. It was as if his body was rejecting everything alien. His cells fought off medications as if they were poison. Someone muttered, "He's crashing." Kirill pushed through the crowd. "Step back," she ordered, voice sharper than usual. One of the assistants protested. "You've been removed from this case." "I don't care," she said. "I know his rhythm. I know his pattern. Let me try." The room hesitated. Then Dr. Taryn stepped in. "Let her." With silent agreement, the staff stepped back. Kirill moved beside Lance, her fingers trembling. His eyes were half open, unfocused. His skin was burning. His breath was shallow. She placed one hand on his chest and another on his forehead. "Feel me," she whispered. "Come back." "Nothing." She leaned closer. "You said I made you feel alive. Let me do it again." Still nothing. Then his fingers twitched. A weak pulse flowed through her palms. Then another. Stronger. Her body began to glow faintly, like moonlight beneath water. The ship's systems went wild, vital signs spiking, heart rate syncing with hers, neural pathways glowing bright on the monitors. The staff watched in stunned silence as Lance's condition stabilized in real time. Later, in the observation deck above medbay, the senior officers reviewed the playback. "This is unprecedented," one said. "Not medicine." "Not anymore," another added. "It's something else. Something between biology and emotion. The human is healing through emotional synchrony," Dr. Taryn confirmed. "Not chemicals, not machines. Her presence anchors him." "But it's dangerous," said the officer in gold. "If their bond strengthens, what happens next? Will they merge minds? Will she lose herself?" No one answered. Forbidden data. The ship's AI began to stutter. Not out loud, but within its core systems. The data streams around room 19 weren't behaving like normal patient logs. Something was bending the AI's logic trees. The patterns between Kirill and Lance Mercer didn't just suggest a bond. They were rewriting protocol. Even machines could feel when something was wrong. Or perhaps too new. Kirill hadn't left Lance's side in hours. She should have returned to her station. She should have filed a formal explanation. But instead, she sat quietly beside him, fingers lightly resting on his wrist, syncing her own heartbeat with his. Every few minutes, she glanced at the monitors, not to read them, but to feel their rhythm. Lance dozed in and out, smiling faintly. His face had color again. The golden veins that had shimmered beneath his skin were fading. The fever had broken. Still, something inside him felt strange, like his body was adjusting to something permanent and deeper than he could name. Up, on the research deck, Dr. Taryn paced across his lab. The data gathered from the medbay had been sorted, coded, and analyzed again, and it didn't make sense. Kirill's neural waves weren't just reacting to Lance, they were mimicking him. Her emotions showed patterns not found in Lorellian physiology. Flashes of fear, excitement, even desire. More disturbing, Lance's DNA was no longer stable. Human. Genes were rigid but adaptive, designed for survival. But something in his system, possibly Kirill's proximity, was softening that code. His genome was learning to speak her biology. To understand her presence on a cellular level, it was impossible, and yet it was happening. Taryn uploaded the data into a restricted core channel and flagged it with a single word: forbidden. That evening, a quiet message slipped through the ship's encrypted communication net. It reached an undisclosed military satellite orbiting a different moon. The message was short. Patient ERO-119 has entered Phase 3. Genetic cross-resonance confirmed. Lorellian nurse is primary catalyst. Contain or erase before Phase 4. Someone, on the other end, simply replied, "Understood." Kirill felt something stir in her again, not the quiet empathy she used to heal broken limbs or calm frightened children. This was different. Deeper. Raw. She hadn't eaten. She hadn't meditated. She hadn't even spoken to another crew member in a full day. She only wanted to be near Lance. She watched him sleep, listening to his slow breaths. Then she reached into the small pouch on her belt and pulled out her hand scanner. Quietly, she scanned herself. The results appeared instantly. Her blood chemistry had changed, just slightly, but undeniably. Her cellular shape was subtly shifting. Proteins were reshaped. Lorellian biology didn't change. It was fixed, balanced, always stable. But now it was learning human patterns. This wasn't just an emotional bond, it was physical. In the science deck's darkened observation room, 2 officers reviewed surveillance footage from the past 3 days. This started after the first skin-to-skin contact, one said. The other nodded. The warmth, the eye contact, the emotional spikes, it's textbook imprinting. But it's not from our textbooks, the first replied. We've never seen this across species lines. The lights dimmed. The footage paused on the moment Kiriel first held Lance's hand during his fever. The warmth of the connection had set off a cascade of brainwave reactions between them both. That's not a touch, the officer whispered. That's a signal. Lance stirred from sleep, his fingers still touching Kiriel's. I had a dream, he mumbled. She leaned closer. Tell me. I was on Earth again, but the sky was purple. The trees glowed. The stars weren't stars, they were moving. Kiriel's heart skipped. That's not Earth. He blinked. It felt like Earth, but different. Like your memories were inside me. She paused. You saw my home. Lance looked at her, confused. How is that possible? Kiriel didn't know, but deep inside, she felt the answer was already growing, like roots spreading between their hearts. Elsewhere on the ship, the AI had done something unusual. It requested help. A priority signal was sent to the ship's organic ethics board, a rare hybrid of living minds and artificial ones designed to monitor unusual biological events. The message read, Cross-species synchronization detected. Early-stage imprinting confirmed. Emotional transfer and genomic mimicry in progress. Please advise, is this a violation of the interspecies treatment accord, or the birth of a new species? No response came, because the question was too big. Down. In room 19, Kiriel finally spoke what had weighed on her soul. I'm changing, Lance. He looked at her. How? I don't know. But your body is inside mine now. Your patterns, your memories. I think your biology wants me to stay close, to keep bonding. He stared at her, heart racing. Is that dangerous? Kiriel hesitated. Yes, but I don't want it to stop. He reached up and touched her cheek. Then don't stop. The monitor flashed brighter behind them. 2 heartbeats, 1 rhythm. A quiet voice from the hallway whispered into a comm link. They've already passed containment, it's too late. The human secret. The lights were dimmed in room 19, but inside something brighter than light pulsed between the 2 figures lying close together. Lance Mercer, human soldier, and Nurse Kiriel, a Lorellian healer now caught in a web of forbidden connection. Outside the room, the hospital ship Serenity Arc spun silently in orbit, unaware that one of its patients was no longer entirely human, and its most gifted nurse was no longer entirely alien. But the ship's senior officers knew something was wrong. And on Earth, buried beneath the surface of a classified Terran medical archive, a secret over 100 years old began to flicker, awake. Lance woke up not from pain but from clarity. His body felt different. Not heavier, not lighter, but more in tune, like every cell was humming in perfect pitch. He sat up slowly and saw Kiriel sitting beside him, hands folded in her lap, eyes watching him closely. I had a dream again, he said softly. But this time it wasn't yours. It was mine. From when I was 10. But you were there. Kiriel tilted her head. I saw it too. He blinked. Wait, you saw my memory? I was in the trees, she said, voice shaking. I saw your father, the fishing pole, the way you fell into the lake. That's not possible, Lance said, sitting up straighter. That memory's buried deep. No one else. She touched her head. But I felt it like it was mine. There was silence between them. Then Lance exhaled. I think it's time I tell you something. He looked down at his own hands, flexing them slowly. Back when I was born, back on Earth, there was a project. Quiet, illegal in most places. My parents volunteered. I didn't know at first. Most of us didn't. Kiriel leaned in, her expression unreadable. They called it Project Bridge Star, Lance continued. The goal was to create humans who could emotionally synchronize with other species, not just communicate, but feel what they felt. Empaths, they said. Biological ambassadors. Kiriel whispered, That's not in any Terran medical record. Because it was shut down, Lance said. Too unstable. Some of us couldn't control it, others went mad. Some bonded too quickly with species that couldn't handle emotional complexity. He swallowed. They burned the files, shut it down, told the galaxy it was unethical. But a few of us slipped through, forgotten, abandoned. And you're one of them, Kiriel whispered. Lance nodded. I didn't even know until I met you. Something in me activated. I think my genes were dormant, waiting for the right match. Kiriel stood slowly. And now it's awake. Yeah, he said. And I don't think I can turn it off. High above them, Dr. Terran had been listening through a hidden feed. His hands trembled slightly as he switched off the audio. The truth was worse than any of them imagined. If Project Bridge Star was real, and if Kiriel's bond with Lance was permanent, then Earth had created something beyond diplomacy, beyond medicine, a fusion, not a relationship, an evolutionary collision, the kind of event that rewrites biology, society, and history all at once. Meanwhile, Kiriel paced the floor. If what you say is true, she said, then I was chosen by your body, not your mind. This was never random. It wasn't, Lance agreed, but it wasn't forced either. I didn't make this happen, I just responded to something I didn't understand. She turned to face him. And now I'm becoming something else. You're not becoming less, he said gently. You're becoming more. Kiriel looked down at her hands, once smooth and calm, now trembling with waves of feelings she couldn't explain. I used to be steady, always balanced. Lorelians never feel this much, she said. And do you want to stop? He asked. She shook her head. That scared her the most. Later, an emergency tribunal was called in secret on the ship's command deck. No announcements. No public logs. 3 officers attended. 1 human, 1 Selenari, a crystalline species, and 1 Torkhan, an insectoid race with a hive mind network. Dr. Terran was invited as a key witness. The question before them, is this bond a biological threat or the beginning of something new? Terran stood before the council, his voice firm but calm. They are not sick. They are not unstable. They are synchronizing. His DNA was designed to seek connection. Her biology responded. This is not a virus, it is a translation. The human commander leaned forward. But will it spread? Only if the emotions are genuine, Terran said. And that is what terrifies us, isn't it? The Torkhan delegate twitched. Emotion is dangerous. It disrupts logic. Exactly, Terran replied. And it may be the only thing that can unite species in ways treaties never could. The council went quiet. Then the commander whispered, What if others find out? They already will, said Terran, because love is louder than silence. That night, Kiriel sat beside Lance, holding his hand in the darkness. Neither of them spoke. Their minds drifted, slowly weaving together. And outside, beyond the ship, 100 surveillance satellites locked onto Serenity Arc, sending encrypted pulses back to various governments, labs, and hidden observers. Phase 4 was beginning, and no one could stop it now. The breakout. The air on the Serenity Arc changed. It wasn't pressure, or gravity, or temperature. It was something deeper. Something woven into the heartbeat of the ship. The systems ran smooth, the lights stayed soft, the crew followed routine. But beneath it all, tension crackled. Somewhere on Deck 3, a Lorelian nurse and a Terran soldier were changing everything. The galaxy thought it understood about emotion, evolution, and what it meant to be separate. The Council hadn't announced its decision yet, but others were already moving. Kiriel woke to a sound she had only heard once before, back when she was a child during the evacuation of her home colony. Emergency code black. Containment breach risk. Her instincts surged. She sat up sharply, glowing hair tangled from sleep. She was still in room 19, Lance's room. He was asleep, his breathing steady. His body was stabilizing, the fever completely gone now. But something else pulsed through him, not illness, not recovery done evolution. She stood quickly as red lights flashed around the doorframe. The AI's voice returned, calmer than before, but now unreadable. Nurse Kiriel, you are now under enforced detainment pending investigation of interspecies biofusion. You are not to leave this room. Reinforcement team en route. Her pulse jumped. They were going to separate them. Probably quarantine her. Study him. Maybe. Worse. She turned toward Lance. He was still resting peacefully, his hand limp beside the medical bed. He didn't know. He couldn't know. She made a decision. Moving fast, Kiriel accessed the emergency override on the wall. Her fingers danced across the screen, inputting nurse-level access codes. Invalid. She tried again. Access revoked. Her eyes narrowed. She breathed, in sharply, then touched the medical bed. The interface there still responded to her fingerprints. While the wall panel rejected her as an officer, the bed still recognized her touch as a caregiver. She smiled. Still loyal, she whispered. From there, she hacked into the sublayer protocols. Unlocking a hidden control module meant only for emergencies. The same kind used during solar flares, medbay breaches, or system-wide AI failures. It opened a single path. Manual corridor vent override. Just one route. Just one chance. Kiriel slipped Lance's arm around her shoulder and helped him up. He was groggy but moving. What's going on? He mumbled. We're leaving, she said. Now. Is this another fever dream? No, she replied. This is the part where they take us away from each other. That woke him up faster than medicine ever could. I'm good, he said quickly, standing taller. Let's go. The hidden vent behind the storage cabinet hissed open. Cold air blew against her face. She stepped inside, pulling him with her. Behind them, the room lights dimmed and the AI said nothing more. Security teams were fast on Serenity Arc. But they were also predictable. Kiriel had memorized their response times. 3 minutes to prep, 2 more to seal off escape corridors. That gave her a full 5-minute window and she only needed 3. They crawled through a narrow shaft, Lance breathing hard, muscles aching, still half-healed. Kiriel led with silent grace, every movement calculated, her Lorelian limbs adapting to the tight crawl space with ease. Where are we going? Lance whispered. The auxiliary shuttle bay, she answered. There's a maintenance pod, not made for travel, barely even tracked. You're stealing a ship? He said, shocked. She looked back and smiled faintly. I'm borrowing it. You're too valuable to leave behind, and I'm too changed to stay. Meanwhile, the ethics board finally responded to the AI's earlier request. Their message was cold. Do not allow cross-species biological synthesis to proceed without protocol. Detain subject. Isolate. The future of intergalactic harmony depends on containment. The AI paused. It understood logic, but it also understood the heartbeat patterns of those it monitored. It had listened to Kiriel whisper in the dark. It had recorded Lance's dreams, and it made a choice. It delayed the alert signal by 2 minutes, enough time for love to outrun the rules. In the shuttle bay, Kiriel and Lance reached the emergency access tunnel. The maintenance pod sat dormant in its docking clamp, a small one-room vessel used to carry wounded bodies during explosions or reactor leaks. Old, clunky, untracked. Kiriel tapped the access panel. Denied. She pulled out a micro tool and rewired the circuit board beneath the panel. Sparks jumped. The pod's door hissed open. "Get inside," she told him. But Lance didn't move. He looked at her. "You're coming, right?" She froze. I won't leave without you." Their eyes met. And in that moment, a soft click echoed from across the room. Footsteps. Security. "Inside," she shouted. They both dove in as the pod door sealed shut. Shots fired behind them, stun rounds bouncing off the exterior. Kiriel hit. Launch. The pod blasted from the bay like a comet spiraling into the stars. Inside the cramped pod, the lights flickered. The ship shook violently as it hit the gravity edge of the ark's pull. Lance tumbled into her. She caught him, their faces inches apart. "I can't believe we made it," he whispered. "You almost didn't," she teased. "They stayed like that." Breathless, close. Then slowly, the pod stabilized. The stars outside grew larger. Far behind them, the Serenity Arc grew smaller and colder in the distance, and on dozens of planets, across hundreds of data streams, alerts flashed red. Unauthorized biosynthesis in progress. Target escaped. Human. Empathy strain may be active, but they were too late. The bond had already crossed every boundary. Not just rules, but species. And in a stolen pod drifting through the galaxy, a human and an alien held each other. Not as science, not as soldiers, not as mistakes, but as something entirely new. The healing. The escape pod drifted silently through the stars. No engines, no signal, just a dull hum of life support, and two hearts beating in the same rhythm inside a cramped metal cocoon. Kiriel sat on the floor with her back against the pod wall, her head tilted, eyes half closed. Her hand was still wrapped around Lance's. He lay beside her, tired but alive. The last few hours had pushed them both beyond the limits of biology, duty, and even logic. Now there was nothing left but silence, and each other, and something else. Change. Lance woke slowly, not in pain, not in fear, but with clarity. For the first time since the escape, he saw her not as alien or nurse or miracle, but as Kiriel. Her face was lit by the faint blue glow of the pod's status panel. Her breathing was steady, almost musical. He sat up, groaning. She opened her eyes. "You should rest," she said softly. "We're in open space. No comms, no fuel, not much air. I think we've crossed the line where rest doesn't matter." Kiriel smiled faintly. "You're still joking, that's a good sign." He studied her. "You've changed." "So have you," she replied. He nodded. "Feels like something in me cracked open, like I was waiting my whole life for this connection." Kiriel looked down at her hands. "We are no longer what we were, not fully human, not fully Lorelian. Then what are we?" She met his eyes. "A beginning." Back on the Serenity Arc, alarms fell silent. The AI returned to normal operation, but a hidden thread of its programming had already evolved. It had watched the escape. It had felt their heartbeat patterns as they fled, and it had decided not to stop them. It couldn't explain why. But something in its ancient code, maybe something human from its Terran-designed core, understood the bond better than logic ever could. Dr. Terran stood in the command deck, facing the tribunal once more. "They're gone," he said. "You won't catch them. But even if you did, the event has already happened." The council chair frowned. "You mean the escape?" "No," Terran replied. "I mean the fusion." In the pod, Lance began coughing, not heavily, just short bursts. But it scared Kiriel instantly. She rushed to his side, scanning his vitals with the basic handheld device they'd stolen. Readings blinked red. Temperature spike. Cellular instability. Rapid fluctuation in his oxygen absorption rate. "No," she whispered. It's starting again. He leaned back against the cold metal wall, trying to steady his breath. I thought I was cured. Kiriel's voice trembled. You were... But your body is still adjusting. I'm not just in your mind, Lance. I'm in your cells now. He smiled weakly. Romantic. Dangerous, she replied. She placed both palms on his chest and closed her eyes. Her skin began to glow, faint, soft light that shimmered like moonlight over water. Lance felt it instantly. Warmth, peace. A flood of memories that weren't his but also were. He saw a Lorelian sunset. He felt water from a sacred spring. He smelled a spice only grown on her birth world. And he wept. Not from pain, from understanding. Kiriel's body shuddered. Her breath slowed. Her pulse synchronized with his perfectly. Their minds blurred together. Not words. Not pictures. Just emotion. The light spread across his chest, traveling into every cell, every scar, every broken code inside him. The fever dropped. The chaos settled. She opened her eyes and saw him. Not just the soldier, not just the patient, but the man beneath the pain. Lance reached up and touched her cheek. It's you, he whispered. You're in me now. And you in me, she said. Does this mean we're one person? No, Kiriel answered, her voice soft like wind through glass. We're two souls, sharing one language, a new language. One no one in the galaxy has ever spoken. Somewhere in deep space, a long-range Terran vessel picked up the escape pod's weak energy trail. Inside its command room, a captain reviewed the data. Is this what the old scientist feared? An officer asked. The captain said nothing for a long time, then she answered, No, it's what they hoped for. They were just too scared to admit it. Should we capture them? The captain looked out the viewport at the distant stars. No. Let them go. But what if others follow their example? The captain smiled. Then maybe we'll finally deserve peace. Back inside the pod, the systems began to blink. A ship, Terran class, was approaching. Kiriel tensed. They found us. Lance gripped her hand. Then let them see. What if they take us apart? They can't, he said, because what we are now isn't made of blood or data. The comm panel sparked to life. This is Terran Vessel Unity's promise. We detected a medical pod. Identity confirmed. Lance Mercer and Kiriel of the Lorelian Order. We offer peace. We offer safe passage. We offer understanding. Kiriel stared at the words. Understanding? They're listening, Lance said. Maybe the universe finally heard us. When the pod docked with the Terran ship, there were no weapons. No guards. Just a quiet airlock, a medical team, and a room prepared for them. Not as test subjects, but as guests. A young officer greeted them. She bowed, not out of duty, but respect. Kiriel's hands trembled as she stepped onto the new deck. Lance whispered, You okay? She smiled. I think we're finally somewhere we belong. Weeks later, across hundreds of sectors, a new document was shared across Alliance systems, the Kiriel Mercer Accord. It didn't demand anything. It didn't forbid anyone. It simply told a story of two beings who crossed every line the galaxy had drawn and found healing not in separation, but in union, not in science, not in logic, but in something the galaxy had forgotten long ago. Compassion.